small attack crafts circle like predators around their prey. A massive American aircraft carrier cuts through the waves, its steel hull reflecting the scorching Middle Eastern sun. Suddenly, Iranian Revolutionary Guard speedboats break formation and accelerate directly toward the carrier group at unprecedented speed. What happens next will demonstrate why the United States Navy maintains absolute dominance in these contested waters. If you want to see how this incredible confrontation unfolds, hit that subscribe button right now and drop a comment telling us what you think about naval power projection in the 21st century. The Strait of Hormuz has always been one of the world's most strategic choke points, controlling roughly 20% of global oil shipments. American carrier strike groups regularly patrol these waters, asserting freedom of navigation in international waters, while the Iranian forces view this presence as a direct provocation on their doorstep. The tension between these two military powers has simmered for decades, occasionally boiling over into direct confrontations that bring the world dangerously close to open warfare. Iranian fast attack boats represent an asymmetric warfare strategy designed specifically to counter overwhelming American naval superiority. These modified speedboats carry heavy machine guns, rocket-propelled grenades, and anti-ship missiles capable of inflicting serious damage despite their small size. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy operates hundreds of these vessels, training crews to execute swarming tactics that could potentially overwhelm even the most sophisticated defense systems through sheer numbers and unpredictability. Recent intelligence reports from early 2025 indicate that Iran has significantly upgraded its fast boat fleet with improved communications equipment and more powerful weapons systems. These vessels now coordinate their movements with unprecedented precision, using encrypted communications that make their intentions difficult to predict until the last possible moment. The Revolutionary Guard has also developed new tactics that involve creating confusion through false approaches, testing response times, and probing for weaknesses in carrier group defensive perimeters. The aircraft carrier at the center of this confrontation represents billions of dollars in advanced military technology and houses over 5,000 American sailors and aviators. Its flight deck spans more than 4 acres, launching and recovering aircraft around the clock to maintain constant surveillance and strike capabilities throughout the region. Surrounding the carrier, guided missile destroyers and cruisers form protective rings bristling with advanced radar systems and weapons platforms designed to engage threats from the air, surface, and beneath the waves. On this particular day, the carrier group was conducting routine operations when radar operators detected unusual activity from multiple Iranian naval bases along the coast. Within minutes, more than 30 fast boats departed simultaneously from 3 different locations, converging rapidly on the American formation. The speed and coordination of this movement immediately triggered alert protocols throughout the strike group, bringing weapon systems online and scrambling fighter aircraft from the carrier's deck. The Iranian boats closed the distance with alarming speed, their powerful engines pushing them across the water at over 50 knots. They maneuvered erratically, making sudden turns and forming temporary groups before scattering again in patterns designed to confuse tracking systems and complicate targeting solutions. Some boats appeared to be making mock attack runs, closing to within dangerous distances before turning away at the last moment, testing American resolve and response protocols. Bridge officers aboard the carrier watched their radar screens with growing concern as the swarm continued to tighten around their formation. Standard operating procedures called for increasingly aggressive warnings, progressing from radio communications to warning shots if necessary. The situation represented exactly the kind of scenario that could spiral out of control, where a single miscalculation or aggressive action by either side could trigger a shooting war with global implications. This is precisely where the A-10 Warthog enters the story, though not in the way most people might expect. The A-10 Thunderbolt II, affectionately known as the Warthog, is primarily designed for close air support missions against ground targets, built around its legendary GAU-8 Avenger rotary cannon that fires depleted uranium rounds capable of shredding armored vehicles. Its low-speed maneuverability and heavily armored cockpit make it ideal for operating in dangerous environments where enemy fire is expected. However, the A-10 does not typically operate from aircraft carriers, and therein lies an interesting aspect of this scenario that requires clarification. The Warthog is an Air Force asset designed for land-based operations, with landing gear and structural characteristics that make carrier operations virtually impossible. What actually responds to fast boat threats near carrier groups are specialized naval aircraft like F/A-18 Super Hornets and helicopters equipped with precision weapon systems specifically designed for surface threats. That said, the A-10 has demonstrated capabilities against fast boats in other operational contexts, particularly in joint exercises and coastal defense scenarios where Air Force assets support naval operations from land bases. The psychological impact of an A-10 making a low-altitude pass over hostile vessels cannot be understated. The distinctive sound of its massive cannon, which fires 70 rounds per second with a roar that sounds like a prolonged thunderclap, has been known to immediately alter the behavior of adversaries. In realistic operational scenarios involving Iranian fast boat swarms, the actual response would involve a carefully calibrated escalation of force. First, radio warnings would be broadcast on international emergency frequencies, clearly stating that the boats are approaching at unsafe speeds and must alter course immediately. Simultaneously, the carrier would launch additional fighter aircraft to provide overhead presence and reconnaissance, gathering intelligence on the boat's weapons loadout and exact numbers. If warnings prove ineffective and boats continue approaching within threatening distances, the next step involves visual signals including flares and searchlights designed to demonstrate serious intent without opening fire. Helicopters carrying door gunners and precision rockets would move into position, hovering at standoff ranges where they could engage individual boats if necessary. The goal remains de-escalation, but with overwhelming force positioned to respond instantly if Iranian crews make any hostile moves. The tactical advantages possessed by American naval aviation in these scenarios are absolutely overwhelming. Advanced targeting systems can track every boat simultaneously, calculating firing solutions faster than human operators could possibly coordinate evasive maneuvers. Infrared cameras penetrate darkness and can detect weapons being brought to firing positions. Electronic warfare systems can jam communications between boats, disrupting their coordination and sowing confusion among their crews. Intelligence gathered from previous confrontations reveals that Iranian fast boat crews often receive contradictory orders during these operations, with some commanders pushing for increasingly aggressive approaches, while others urge caution. This internal tension creates opportunities for American forces to exploit, demonstrating sufficient strength to encourage the cautious voices, while avoiding actions that would empower hardliners seeking direct confrontation. It represents psychological warfare conducted at sea, where every movement and response sends messages that extend far beyond the immediate tactical situation. The weapon systems available to defend carrier groups against swarm attacks have evolved dramatically in recent years. Close-in weapon systems like the Phalanx CIWS can autonomously engage multiple targets with incredible accuracy, firing thousands of rounds per minute at incoming threats. Rolling airframe missiles provide slightly longer-range intercept capabilities against boats carrying anti-ship missiles. These layered defenses create virtually impenetrable barriers around high-value assets like aircraft carriers. Modern rules of engagement in the Persian Gulf reflect decades of lessons learned from previous incidents. Commanders maintain authority to defend their vessels and crews, but operate under strict guidelines designed to prevent escalation. Every radio communication, every warning shot, and every defensive maneuver gets recorded and analyzed by legal teams ensuring compliance with international maritime law. This documentation proves crucial in the diplomatic battles that inevitably follow any confrontation in these contested waters. Iranian motivations for conducting these aggressive fast boat operations extend beyond simple military posturing. Domestically, these confrontations allow the Revolutionary Guard to demonstrate strength and defiance against American presence, reinforcing their political position within Iran's complex power structure. Internationally, they send messages to regional allies and adversaries about Iran's willingness to challenge American dominance, potentially complicating United States strategic calculations throughout the Middle East. The economic implications of these confrontations ripple across global markets almost instantly. Oil prices spike whenever tensions escalate in the Strait of Hormuz, as traders factor in potential supply disruptions. Insurance rates for commercial shipping transiting the Gulf increase substantially, costs that ultimately get passed to consumers worldwide. These economic weapons give Iran leverage that extends far beyond their actual military capabilities, allowing them to exert influence disproportionate to their conventional power. Training for scenarios involving fast boat swarms consumes countless hours for American naval personnel. Sailors practice their specific roles in elaborate drills that simulate increasingly complex attack patterns. Pilots rehearse attack profiles against small, fast-moving surface targets, perfecting techniques that maximize effectiveness while minimizing collateral damage risks. These exercises have become more sophisticated, following detailed analysis of actual Iranian tactics observed during real-world encounters. International legal frameworks governing these confrontations remain frustratingly vague in many respects, while vessels maintain rights to self-defense under maritime law. Determining exactly when aggressive maneuvering crosses the line into hostile action requires split-second judgment calls with enormous consequences. Different nations interpret these standards differently, creating ambiguities that aggressive actors can exploit while maintaining plausible deniability about their intentions. The role of technology in detecting and countering these threats continues advancing rapidly. Artificial intelligence systems now assist human operators in tracking multiple targets simultaneously, predicting likely movement patterns based on historical data, and recommending optimal defensive responses. Drone technology provides persistent overhead surveillance without risking piloted aircraft, maintaining continuous eyes on potential threats even during extended operations. Looking toward the future, both sides continue developing new capabilities in this ongoing competition. Iran invests in faster boats with improved weapons and stealth characteristics, while American forces refine sensors and weapon systems to counter these evolving threats. This technological arms race shows no signs of slowing, with each advancement by one side spurring countermeasures by the other in an endless cycle of adaptation and response. The human element remains crucial despite all this advanced technology. Individual sailors and pilots must maintain constant vigilance, making critical decisions under enormous pressure with incomplete information. Their training, discipline, and professionalism ultimately determine whether these confrontations end peacefully or spiral into combat. Every person in the chain of command bears responsibility for outcomes that could affect international relations for years to come. What this scenario ultimately demonstrates is the complex reality of modern naval operations in contested waters. Simple narratives about overwhelming force miss the nuanced decision-making that actually governs these interactions. American forces possess the capability to devastate Iranian fast boat formations within minutes, but choosing to exercise that power involves considerations far beyond mere tactical advantage. The real victory comes from maintaining presence and freedom of navigation, without triggering the wider conflict that would serve no one's interests.